The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
We joke in my household that Michelle, she's got a dazzling smile. Yeah. Listen, I understand there's, in terms of popularity, there's basically Michelle, Malia, Sasha, Sonny, our dog, then me. I understand. She's hot. She's smart. She is. She's charming. She's intelligent. I get it. But here's a little secret about Michelle. In our household, she can be a little bit of the glass half empty person sometimes. She can get a little discouraged about what she sees happening. And I'm the hope and change guy. So I'm usually a little more optimistic. And so if she's been watching the news or reading the papers and some crazy stuff is taking place, which is basically every 10 minutes, she can get a little down, and I'll say, hey, honey, everything's going to be okay. And I believe that. I believe things will be okay. But I also know that things won't be okay on their own. They'll be okay if we make the effort. It'll be okay if we work for it, not just on election day, but every day in between. And I know some of you probably feel like Michelle does sometimes, because I feel, even me, the hope and change guy, I can get discouraged. Politics is so nasty and mean, and it just seems like people will say anything and do anything. And it can be depressing sometimes. And a lot of what we used to take for granted. Things like respect and common decency and telling the truth and believing in science and the idea that every vote should count and that the person with the most votes win. All that somehow has become controversial. But I was listening backstage to what Josh talked about, the experience of him running for governor and traveling around the state. And it reminded me of the experience that I had first as a state senator traveling around my district, and then as a U.S. Senate candidate in Illinois, and then as a presidential candidate. It's such a privilege to be able to meet people from every walk of life, folks who look different and live in different places. And it would always remind me, and what we have to remind ourselves, is that there's this common thread. There's this thing that binds us together as Americans. A belief that no matter who we are, or where we come from, what we look like, who we love, what our last name is, how we worship, a belief that all of us matter. The kind of slash and burn politics that we're seeing right now, that doesn't have to be who we are. We can be better. And it has nothing to do, by the way, with political correctness or being too woke. It's about fundamental values that my grandparents from Kansas taught me. Values I grew up with. Values you grew up with. Values we try to teach our kids. Values we learn in churches and mosques and synagogues and temples. Honesty, fairness, opportunity, hard work. Values that Josh Shapiro and John Fetterman stand for. Values that Joe Biden stands for. Values that were enshrined in our founding documents a few miles from here. A clarion call for freedom and equality that Philly's own Liberty Bell represents. That's what America stands for. That's who we are. So if you're anxious and frustrated right now. Don't complain. Don't mope. Don't tune out. Get off your couch and do what? Put down your phones and do what? Vote for Josh Shapiro. Vote for John Fetterman. Vote for leaders who will fight for you and your families. Vote for folks who will fight for that big, inclusive, hopeful, forward-looking America that we believe in. Who will work with Joe Biden to build a country that is more fair and more just and more equal and more free. That's our task. Let's get to work. I love you, Phil.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. So, pretty inspirational talk from former President Obama. Okay, he's always been a good public speaker, and when you compare that to Biden's speeches, Biden, obviously doesn't rank up there next to Obama, but the thing is Biden is doing what he can, and he gets things done, so he has something to say that people want to hear. And but Obama is right in the things that he says. I mean, he's the Republicans out there have got nothing to offer anybody except more hatred and taking away things, trying to destabilize the whole country with the ideas that they have in place, which they don't really go around saying a whole lot about, to their fellow voters, because they're too afraid that some of them might just have enough marbles in their head to piece together just what kind of party they're standing with here, and it's not a very good one. All right, unfortunately, a lot of these people, for what I had said in that short before, a lot of them are kind of trapped in it because they've got no place else to go that would ever accept people of that kind of thinking, and that's really the way it is for a lot of them. But one of the things that happened is that Trump was at I guess you could call it a gathering. I don't know why. I mean, he has these things where they do stuff, they talk, but he doesn't really have a reason to be up there talking, okay? He's just up there putting on a show, and the people seem to like it. But this time he put on a show, and he mocked Ron Desantis. He called him Ron Sanctimonious, and the crowd booed him for that. And he didn't even act like he gave a shit that they didn't like what he said, which, whatever Trump thinks is right and everybody else who doesn't agree with him is wrong. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand, right? So, yeah, he wasn't going to care if anybody liked what he said about Ron DeSantis. But when you look at the video on YouTube about that speech and what he said, what you'll find more interesting is how the comment section below it. And I have it here, the comment section. I just want you to listen here to some of these remarks that were made here by people, obviously of the Republican Party. One person here said, I'm not going to put names here, but I'm going to say, bad form, no reason to be jealous of Ron's clean track record. It's why a lot of people want him to run. There's nothing bad the media can say about him. Really. Well, the media won't say anything bad about him because that's the media. Okay, the media doesn't really hold much of a candle next to being truthful or, showing us what we need to see. Okay, they're not really being the media. The media won't talk about it because, for one thing, the companies that we get the media from, okay, the news we get the media from, these people are enjoying the tax breaks that they're getting, that they got from Donald Trump. All right, and they'd like to see them continue. So they got sort of how can I say it? They got an axe here, or they got something in this, a stake in this for themselves, to see Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump win another presidency or whatever. They'd like to see those tax breaks extended, okay, because they're about to run out. So the reason why you're not going to hear a lot of bad news about him, but the thing of it is there is bad news. If you've been watching other than Fox News, you're going to see that there is some stuff being said about Ron DeSantis that isn't very good, okay, especially when you think about what just happened here a few months ago about him trafficking immigrants all the way up to Martha's Vineyard, just to basically thumb his nose at their faces up there, be figuring, oh well, see, Democrats won't like having these people up there either. Assuming of course that he figures that people are just as bigoted as he is, okay, he went and did that just to throw it in their face, just to see them be hypocrites, but it didn't happen. Okay, because instead these people were greeted when they got off the buses up there, all right, and helped. But he had to break a law in order to accomplish that, which, of course, he's never going to answer for that, right? Neither is the governor of Texas, who was also in on that fucking thing, okay? So you got, the Republicans can get away with anything, okay? Whatever the hell it is. Here's another comment. Hopefully DeSantis won't play the trash game with Trump. Come on, Trump, we're on the same team. No. Because at the end of the day, and to quote Highlander, there can be only one. Okay? At the end of the day, there can be only one. You can't have two people as president at the same time, okay? At the end of the day, either Trump is going to be their president or DeSantis is going to be their president. Whoever it may be, okay? So, yes, they're going to play the trash game, and very heavily, I might add. Probably the worst campaign you're ever going to see from the right wing in decades. Okay, it's going to be a piss battle like nothing's ever happened. Okay, these two clowns refuse to lose, and what's going to happen when they have the primaries and one of them wins? Is he going to accuse DeSantis of cheating, or is DeSantis going to accuse Trump of cheating? I mean, you see what I'm saying? If you got two people with the same mentality, they are going to totally fuck their entire party of ever getting past the primaries, because only one can be left standing. Okay, only one. You can't have two. So that's why I say, we're going to be in for quite a show. Watching that albatross unfold before the public's eye. I'm glad I'm not a Republican, because I would feel like shit having to go through that, because I could tell you, I would not like how that's going to turn that the rest of the Trumplican party into. It's going to fracture them worse than ever, and it might be just what the Democrats will want in order to win, because a fractured party will lose, just like the Democrats lost when we had Sanders and Clinton. Okay, that fractured the party enough to give Trump the victory. So, the Democrats may want to just sit back and let this thing happen, and let the Republicans claw at each other until there's nothing left of the party to continue, and the stronger party will look better at the end of the day. Let's see, what else here? Regardless of if you see the comment as not a big deal or in bad taste, it's the moderate and independent voters that will most likely view it as a negative. Trump and his mouth were the reason he lost in 2020. He keeps it up and he'll be a two-time loser. Well, he will be a two-time loser, okay? He's more than a two-time loser, if you ask me. He's a loser many times over. Okay, the guy never should have been president in the first place. How he got in there was either a fix or a fluke, one or the other. Okay. Here's another one. If you say that someone is sanctimonious, you disapprove of them because you think that they are trying to appear morally better than other people. This is his second time making digs at Desantis, and 100% not a good idea. Well, like I said, this is how it's going to be. It's going to get worse as we get closer to 2024, but this is the beginning. Okay? I don't think these people are really going to have to worry too much about Trump winning or anything like that, because with all the shit that's going on with him legally right now, that's probably going to be denied him, the White House, because they're going to have so much pending on him. They're going to say, look, he's under way too much legal clouds right now to be even allowed into the White House. I mean, he's looking at some pretty steep charges here. Okay, you got people that are trying to go after him because he raped or something. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's like how can I say this? It's like trying to put O.J. Simpson in the White House while he's still going through the fucking murder case of Nicole Simpson, okay? It's kind of like that. I mean, how the fuck is this country going to look if they try to push Trump into the White House while he's under what? A plethora of litigation from many different cases, okay? I mean, they're still going after him for his fucking taxes, for Christ's sake. That's been going on since he was running for president, okay? This guy, I mean, he's never going to be in the clear. And it would be a very bad look for this country to put in a criminal as a president, okay? I'm sorry. I mean, how you feel about that as a Trump supporter, but, you know, if Bill Clinton, I mean, you wouldn't even let Bill Clinton in the White House. You didn't want him in there because of the stupid land deal. Just that one thing, okay? Or he cheated on his wife, okay? Two things, by the way, that don't even come close to the level of fucking shit that Trump has done, okay? Not to mention destroying our national security by stealing all those files out of the damn White House that did not belong to him, whether he says they do or not, okay? He never cleared any of that with the FBI, okay? All that stuff, you can't just deem that unclassified because you're the president. There's a process you have to go through, even as a president, in order to declassify. There has to be records of that you declassified it. There aren't any. So that him saying that was an out-and-out lie. But the fact is, you cannot have, you know, a president or a person running for that office who's under so much legal battle right now. I mean, he's ensconced in defending himself when he's got a ton of lawyers around him trying to defend him, okay? And while that's going on, he's out there stealing money from his damn supporters, okay, by, you know, putting up all these donation things here that are just scams, you know, that are just for him, okay? He needs money to pay for his legal battles. How do you think he's going to get that? Okay? Meanwhile, he's throwing all of his allies under the bus right and left, you know, except for, Bannon there, Steve Bannon, because the two of them are connected. They're like husband and wife. All right, but the thing of it is that everybody else he's throwing them under the bus because he can't afford them. He can't afford to protect them. And these suckers are just going along with it like they don't care. You know, that's a very sick kind of loyalty. You know. Okay, here we go. It says, if you say that someone is sanctimonious, you okay, we already read that. Okay. The recent corporate earnings calls have only reinforced the familiar and unwelcome theme that corporations did not need to raise their prices so high on struggling families. The calls tell us corporations have used inflation, the pandemic, and supply chain challenges as an excuse to exaggerate their own costs and then nickel and dime consumers. Okay, well that's from the president of Accountable United States, who made that statement on November the 1st, and obviously a Democrat had copied and posted that from when Kyle Herrig said that on that day. Okay, which he's pointing out the truth. Okay, the corporations are, as they often do, they take something that's happening in the world and they use that as an excuse to justify increasing the price of something. Okay, oil, food, whatever, you name it. And the Republicans will defend that because, hey, that's what they're there for, right? They're there to back up the corporation. So they go around and they make they defend the corporations from the Democrats who attack them, saying that they're price gouging us, and the Republicans will sit there and say, no, that's not true. You know, this is why it's happening. So that's why they don't want anything to stop as far as Ukraine goes. That's why they want to support Russia. That's because right now Russia is kind of getting their ass kicked over there. And so the Republicans want to support Russia so they won't quit their fighting, because that's giving the corporations an excuse to raise the oil prices. I mean, or to keep the gas prices high. Even though the price per barrel of oil is going down, they're still raising the price of gas. So they're making huge windfall profits here as a result, which is why the Democrats in Washington, want to put a tax on that. Okay, some other countries have done that already in order to control inflation. And that's going to be a very, very tough battle to fight to get that a reality here in the United States, because we have a very big group of people who will fight tooth and nail to stop that from ever happening. Okay, but believe me, the windfall tax is the way to go, and we really need to have that, because we should not be. I mean, they yell at us for saying don't hoard during a hurricane, don't hoard during a tornado or something like that. Remember during the pandemic, they were telling people not to hoard on food and stuff like that and medicine. Well, what do you think the corporations are doing right now? This is hoarding, right? They're taking something bad happening in the world and they're trying to suck as much money as they can get out of it for people, from people. You know what I'm saying? That's hoarding, but yet they tell us in the reverse not to do that. So it's very, very sneaky and diabolical as to what they're trying to do in order to get more money for their stockholders, who really, you could give them all the money in the universe and they still would want more. Okay, there's no satisfying stockholders. There never is. That's why I used to laugh at teachers in when I was going to school who used to play the stock market, and I'm thinking, you guys are just nickel and dime buyers, for Christ's sake. That the stock market is not going to benefit you. And truth be told, you go see any of the teachers that are out there today, and not a damn one of them is any loftier in wealth than they were back then. Okay, and they spent all their time reading the newspaper, looking at the stock prices and thinking they were making money. They're not the only people who make money in the stock market, my friends, are people who already have money, okay, who got more than they could ever deal with. Okay, they can afford to lose $1 million overnight. All right, if you can't afford to lose, you have no business playing in that casino, my friend. You should get the fuck out of there. Okay, because if you put your money in that and you don't have any clout or any knowledge about what's to come, you're just a guy walking blind heading for a cliff. You're an idiot. And all these teachers were idiots back then, okay? Because none of them ever got any further ahead in life playing in that goddamn game. For the rest of us, other than that who are not rich, the only way you make more money is you assert yourself in other ways to make money, okay, which is like get another job or something, or you work harder. Find a better job, work harder. I mean, that's the only other option. Playing the stock market is not something that benefits anyone who gets into it, okay? Jesus, I can't think of anybody who ever got rich overnight by being in the stock market. I really, you know, if there is somebody, please put their name on the screens, because I really don't know anybody. I can't think of anybody in my years, 51 years on this earth, who ever got rich overnight playing the stock market, unless they invented something, you know, like Bill Gates or something, and they got rich that way, and then they got into the stock market. But never the other way around, okay? Never the other way around. It's always the only people who benefit or lose from it are people who have got more wealth than they can ever possibly spend in their lifetime, okay? They can afford to lose, you know, $1 million overnight, okay? It means nothing to them. They can get it all back the next day just by shifting some assets around or something, you know? It's an easy thing. To them, it's just a board game. To the rest of us, it's like we think it's the mega bucks, okay? You got a better chance winning on that than you do winning on the goddamn, you know, winning the Powerball than you do winning on that stupid Wall Street game. Jesus. What's the Powerball right now? Like 1.9 billion, something like that? You know? The higher the amount is, the more people will play into it, because you got a lot of people out there who need that money. So it's really not a good time to play the Powerball when the stake is up so high, because the odds of you winning become lesser, will be lesser, because there's more people playing it. So, you know, right now, if anybody wins this thing, they're going to be a very extremely lucky individual, and, you know, like I said at the beginning, there can be only one winner, right? All right, let's have a commercial break. We'll be right back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me. This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Самоубийственное желание подразнить русского медведя. Вот что говорит Трамп. Сейчас мы имеем войну между Россией и Украиной с потенциальной смертью сотен тысяч людей. Мы должны требовать незамедлительных переговоров о мирном завершении войны, и мы закончим Третью мировую войну. От нашей планеты ничего не останется, а все потому, что глупые люди понятия не имели. У них не было информации. Они не понимают этого, они действительно не понимают. Я восстановил наши вооруженные силы, я восстановил нашу ядерную энергетику. Они не понимают, что имеет дело с ядерной мощью, они понятия не имеют, что делать.
Now I brought you all here for a big announcement, and I guess it's time that I actually get on to making the announcement part.
Donald Trump said to J.D. Vance, all you do is kiss my ass to get my support. He said that.
J.D. is kissing my ass. He wants my support. So.
After Trump took J.D. Vance's dignity from him on the stage in Youngstown, J.D. Vance got back up on stage and started shaking his hand, taking pictures, saying, hey, aren't we having a great time here tonight? I don't know anybody I grew up with, I don't know anybody I went to high school with that would allow somebody to take their dignity like that and then get back up on stage.
I think he's running J.D.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Imagine how many lives could have been saved if Ron DeSantis had spent enough time in the weeks before hurricane season preparing Southwest Florida. Instead of spending time and money trafficking Venezuelan migrants and trolling the news media. Imagine.
The Lincoln Project paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, an article here from Raw Story caught my eye. This was published about 3 hours ago, and it's written by Travis Geddes, entitled, Ron DeSantis Sending Very Dangerous Sign to GOP Voters. And Trump's worried. Religious scholar. Okay. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is overly courting Christian nationalist voters, and Donald Trump lashed out at his most likely GOP challenger. The Florida governor released a new video presenting him as a savior anointed by God to save the country, which the former president perceived as a direct threat to his grip over right-wing evangelical voters. And historian Sarah Posner told the Washington Post that Trump was right to be concerned. Quote, Trump knows that his base believes God anointed him to lead America at a critical juncture, and that many of them believe him to be a messianic figure who alone can rescue America from what they call demonic forces, those being liberalism, civil rights, deep state, and more, unquote. Posner told the Post columnist Greg Sargent, quote, none of Trump's potential rivals have so blatantly tried to claim that divine blessing, unquote. Quote, it's a very dangerous sign that DeSantis is reading the base, which has been bombarded with ever more radical claims of anointings, prophecy, and spiritual warfare against the left as respective to savior alternatives to Trump, unquote, she added. DeSantis was explicitly sending a message to voters who believe America was founded as a Christian nation using their language, and signaling that he shares their vision of taking the country back from the forces of evil, Posner said. Quote, the video is a prime example, unquote, said Posner, a historical scholar of the religious right. Quote, DeSantis has also used a revealing misquote from the Bible, calling on supporters to put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the left's schemes, unquote. Quote, the armor of God, quote, actually reads, take your stand against the devil's schemes, unquote, Posner added. Quote, he substitutes the left for the devil, demonstrating to his base that he, like them, will treat politics as a battleground for spiritual warfare to vanquish the left, unquote. Well, my reaction to this, it's not the first time the right wing has ever used religious commentary to shroud themselves from the bad deeds they plan on doing. There's a lot of right-wing evangelicals in that group, in that party. There always has been. And a lot of these voters, like I mentioned, I think in a few videos back, treat politics like it's a religion. You know, they vote because they feel they're doing God's work, a lot of them, okay? Democrats, for the most part, don't look at it that way, okay? They don't take it to that nth degree. Only fanatics do. And we see it basically as a civic duty. They see it as, a biblical calling. That's why it's not a good idea for Democrats to stay home during election periods, because the people that they are going up against are folks who take this thing to heart in more ways than one. So, Democrats, if they can't stick together, they should at least vote Democrat whenever it's time to vote, no matter what they believe in. Because, you've had your chance to give your take on things, to make your argument, and if you still didn't win, then you still have to vote your party, because if you don't want these fanatical religious nuts getting their hands on control of power, because what has power ever done for religious people like that? Okay, it never works out. These people will abuse that power every single time. That's why, when you see on the news these other countries where these religious fanatics gain control of a Middle East state or country or something like that, you see lots of civil disruption. People being denied freedoms or treated like shit all across the, we see beheadings and stuff, all based on religion, their religion, that they have the right to do this. Now, we don't want to see that happen here in the United States, and the best way to do that is to see a chicken for what it is. If these people are walking around like that, acting like evangelicals, then hey, we don't need that guy in government, okay? Government and religion don't mix. That's why we try to keep them apart, all right? So if you're going to play the religious card in order to win a government seat, then that's bad. That's a bad mix right there. Obviously, you don't think you got a chance in hell of winning, because you can't sell yourself in any other way than this religious talk. You don't have a plan or agenda or anything to offer your voters, to sell them on you, except just that. Now, I don't know why the Republican voters don't demand more from their candidates by asking them, well, will you tell us what your goddamn plan is? They don't say that because they have this thing about faith, that the candidates that are running are chosen by somebody else to be in the front running. Okay, like said in the article, they looked at Trump as being chosen by God to be put in the position that he was put in. So they don't ask Trump what he wants to do. They just trust that Trump will do it, what needs to be done. Okay, that's the way they look at politics. Democrats, you got to understand that. All right, this is the way Republicans view their politics. To them, it's a religion. To us, it's just politics. It's just government. Okay, we don't take it serious, but we should, because when they go and vote, what their actions do affects us all across the board. Blue or red, doesn't friggin' matter which side. What they decide on affects all of us. They don't take into consideration anything. It's their way or the highway. That kind of mentality leads to a lot of civil disorder. Eventually, coups will happen. When people are constantly being ignored and not listened to, when they're being marginalized and, put in boxes and stuff like that to keep them out of the public eye, you don't want that happening, because that's how you destroy government right there. And that's what creates an uprising a civil war, if you will, because nobody likes to have that kind of shit, that kind of feeling of oppression on them. And that's what they're bringing to the table. They may not even realize that themselves, because they're so blinded by faith that God is controlling that group of people, that they may not even see that what they're setting themselves up for is a fall. Okay, pure and simple. What do they say about good intentions, huh? But these people with good intentions are going to get us all in trouble if they don't wake up and understand that, look, this isn't a religious thing here. Okay, we're talking about government. We're talking about people's rights, their liberties and stuff like that. You may not agree with certain people doing certain things, okay, but that's not your fucking problem. Okay, you have a responsibility to live your own life and leave other people alone. When you start butting your nose in other people's business, even when it's not political, you create fights. I mean, how many families have been busted up over the years because, a stepmother does, or a father or something, they don't agree with the same thing, and it splits the family right down the fucking middle. Okay, and for the rest of they just ignore each other. It just destroys the whole family. Okay, that happens so much. I mean, why? Look at the Jerry Springer show, for Christ's sake, or other shows where they had all these people. A lot of them are people that their families didn't agree on something, and it just broke them in half. And they take their woes onto things like that, or you hear about it on the news, or it ends up being a crime committed, like a murder. How is that going to be any better on the bigger scale when you're talking about a whole country? Forcing a group of people to swallow the Kool-Aid when they don't want to swallow it. It doesn't work. It does not fucking work. And, they're not thinking about that. I mean, look, even in the Bible, the story about Jesus, he didn't even try to shove it down anyone's throat. He was just going around telling people how to live their life and stuff like that. And look what happened. The other side that didn't want to hear it got pissed off, and they crucified him and chased down everybody that followed him. Okay, I mean, that's what happens when you do shit like that. That's why we have a system in place where the majority rules, and everybody agrees on that. Or at least they should. If you don't agree on it, then you really shouldn't be living in this country, because that's the way, our founders wanted it. Okay, because too often in the past before that, it was only a family that decided the course of the future for the whole country. That's not fair. It's like the same thing about these 6 justices in the Supreme Court deciding the fate of millions of women in this country across the board here. How the hell can their ruling possibly be appropriate for every situation that's out there? It can't be. So it's not just. But that's why I say, what Desantis is doing here, yes, is dangerous, but it's not like a first time. We've seen it before. Okay, we've seen it before. I remember all the way back to the Reagan years. People that looked at Ronald Reagan in the same fucking way. That really always kind of annoyed the shit out of me when I'd hear it coming from the kids in school, because they were hearing that from their parents, and they were parroting that out to me at school. And I knew that's what they were hearing. I mean, kids don't think like that about politics, okay? They're only saying that because they heard their parents say this shit, all right? But I knew it was ridiculous. And I would tell my father this, and he'd laugh. And so I just, like I said, it's a very bad mix. And what Desantis is doing, his base might like it, okay? But there comes a point, even in the base, where ideas will conflict with each other, because no two people agree on everything. Even if you're of the same religion or the same political spectrum, they're never going to agree 100% on everything. Everybody's got their own take on things, their own experiences to call up, and that's where differences come from, okay? So it's going to be dangerous in a lot of ways. I mean, it's going to, all I could say is I can't wait to see how this plays out in the race for the president in 2024. This party's really going to go through a lot of shit here, more than they're comfortable with, I think, in the days to come, because either they're going to get the chance to choose which one wins, or the party itself is going to choose for them. All right, and either way, they're not going to like what happens. Okay, so this other article here was interesting. It kind of it echoes us. This happened in Canada, and this is from the Global News, written by Sam Cooper, entitled "Canadian Intelligence Warned Prime Minister Trudeau that China covertly funded 2019 election candidates." Canadian intelligence officials have warned Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that China has allegedly been targeting Canada with a vast campaign of foreign interference, which includes funding a clandestine network of at least 11 federal candidates running in the 2019 election, according to global news sources. Delivered to the Prime Minister and several cabinet members in a series of briefings and memos first presented in January, the allegations included other detailed examples of Beijing's efforts to further its influence and, in turn, subvert Canada's democratic process, sources say. Based on recent information from the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, those efforts allegedly involve payments through intermediates to candidates affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party, placing agents into the offices of MPs in order to influence policy, seeking to co-opt and corrupt former Canadian officials to gain leverage in Ottawa, and mounting aggressive campaigns to punish Canadian politicians whom the People's Republic of China views as threats to its interests. CSIS told Global News it could not answer some questions for the story, but the service confirmed it has identified the PRC's foreign interference in Canada, which can include covert funding to influence election outcomes. Quote, "The Chinese Communist Party is using all elements of state power to carry out activities that are a direct threat to our national security and sovereignty," unquote. The briefings did not identify the 2019 candidates, but the alleged election interference network included members from both the Liberal and Conservative parties, according to sources with knowledge of the briefs. Global News was not able to confirm the sources which cabinet ministers may have been privy to the briefs, nor the specific timing that the information was reportedly shared. Chief among the allegations is that CSIS reported that China's Toronto consulate directed a large clandestine transfer of funds to a network of at least 11 federal election candidates and numerous Beijing operatives who worked as their campaign staffers. The funds were allegedly transferred through an Ontario provincial MPP and a federal election candidate staffer. Separate sources aware of the situation said a CCP proxy group acting as an intermediary transferred around $250,000. The 2022 brief said that some, but not all, members of the alleged network are witting affiliates of the Chinese Communist Party. The intelligence did not conclude whether CSIS believes the network successfully influenced the October 2019 election results. CSIS can capture its findings through warrants that allow electronic interception of communications among Chinese consulate officials and Canadian politicians and staffers. Sources close to this situation say they are revealing details from the 2022 briefs to give Canadians a clearer understanding of China's attacks on Canada's democratic system. Out of fear of retribution, they have asked their names to be withheld. In response to the briefing details, experts say the alleged interference points to weakness in Canada's outdated espionage and counterintelligence laws, which sophisticated interference networks run by China, Russia, and Iran are exploiting. Still, the 2022 intelligence asserts that China conducts more foreign interference than any other nation, and interference threats to Canada increased in 2015 when Chinese President Xi Jinping elevated the CCP's so-called United Front influence networks abroad. The Prime Minister's office did not directly answer a series of questions from Global News, including whether or not Prime Minister Trudeau was briefed in 2022 on Canadian intelligence that alleged China had covertly funded a clandestine network of candidates in the 2019 election. It also did not respond to a question on the need for tighter federal rules against foreign influences on Canadian politics. Quote, protecting Canadians' security is our top priority. Threats, harassment, or intimidation of Canadian citizens are unacceptable, and all allegations of interference are investigated thoroughly by our security agencies, unquote. A statement from the PMO said, quote, as threats evolve, so must the methods used to address them. That is why the Prime Minister has given the Minister of Public Safety the mandate to improve collaboration between Canadian security agencies, unquote. Conservative Party leadership did not respond to Global News questions by deadline for this story. Quote, we simply don't have a prosecutorial endgame to deal with foreign interference, unquote, said Dan Stanton, a former CSIS officer who studies Chinese interference but isn't privy to recent CSIS reporting. Quote, the sophistication of the threat, it is not the guy with the fedora and black coat like the old days with the KGB. The whole point of influence networks is that anyone can be used by a foreign state as a co-optee or agent or source, unquote. Stanton and other experts told Global News that CSIS benefits from modernized counter-terror laws that have enabled the service to mitigate terror planning and funding networks since 9/11, but Canada's espionage laws are stuck in the Cold War era. Quote, so until we make legislative changes on interference, unquote, Stanton said, quote, it's just CSIS telling our politicians, hey, be careful out there, unquote. In April 2021, a private member's bill in the House of Commons called for a foreign influence registry, but it did not become law. Kenny Chiu, the BC Conservative MP who wrote the bill, was subsequently targeted by the CCP's election interference network, sources said. Chiu says his law would have compelled anyone working for hostile regimes such as Russia and Iran and China to declare their interest, and this transparency would protect Canada's democracy. The Toronto consulate and Chinese officials in Ottawa did not respond to questions from Global News about allegations in the 2022 briefs. My reaction to this, it's a pattern, and I'll tell you why. First, we got Chinese and Russian interference here in the United States with our political system. Okay, we've proved that already. Now we're hearing about Canada being hit by influences from communist China. And wouldn't you know it, last year there was a whole lot of talk in Australia about Chinese buying up little islands off the northern coast, I guess, of Australia, you know, and they're setting up like little tiny ports for their military ships, okay, as they buy these islands. The people that run the islands are taking big chunks of money and they're just walking, you know, quietly away because those are poor little islands. So they're buying up these islands in an attempt to make like sort of a line, basically, you know, a sort of a perimeter going all the way down from Taiwan all the way down up to northern Australia. Now, of course, we know they want Taiwan, right? But the one thing that's I think that's been keeping them from actually greenlighting their invasion is the fact that they are not ready to take reprisals from the United States, Canada, the allied nations, right? So what have they been doing, you know, as a response to that? They're trying to influence political leaders in these countries that could support them and maybe stave off any retaliation from the United States and Canada from reacting to what they might do down in Australia. I mean, because the Australians are worried shitless, you know, that their country is going to get invaded by China. They've been talking about that on 60 Minutes Australia here for months, you know, and they got some representative of Russia on their show that says, oh, you know, he's more of an apologist, and he's pissing everybody off. And the same thing for China. I mean, you got people that are being sheltered by Australia that fled from China and went to Australia, okay, and they're worried that, you know, the Chinese government has got operatives in Australia looking for them, okay. They've left their families behind, and they're worried their families are going to get killed, you know, or be used against them to get them to come back to China. there's a whole lot of shit going on right now with Australia. I mean, so if you got time on YouTube, try to look up all the 60 Minutes Australia news stuff, and you're going to see a lot of interesting things brewing down in that part of the world that we're not hearing over here in the United States, because it's an ocean away, okay? And the only thing that we're focused on over here is Trump, Russia, and things going on in Ukraine. In Australia, they're worried about China, and all these little islands that are selling out to China, creating a perimeter that Australia is worried that it's going to lock them out. They could set blockades up to keep Australia from getting stuff from United States. Okay, there's a lot of worry down there, and this, their military down there, and they've been training for a possible invasion. They've been trying to get the United States involved here and helping them, and we're not hearing much about that over here. But like I said, you're not hearing the news from these other countries, from their programs and stuff. And right now, China is their number one worry over there. It's not really Ukraine, it's China, or it's not even really Russia either, because they just, China is right there. It's their fucking neighbor practically. I mean, they're not that far off their coast. So, and Australia is a big country. So this makes sense to me. I mean, if they want to keep the reaction from the United States and Canada to a minimum, if they go and invade Taiwan, they're going to have people in our political structure in their pocket, essentially. They're going to have people working for them. So if an invasion ever happens in Taiwan from China, and Canada and the United States don't really do anything, then that means we got people inside our governments who are working for China. Okay? Because otherwise, it would be a declaration of war and World War III would start. But to avoid that, they want to buy off our people, so that way we won't do anything when they go and annex Taiwan. So that's what I think is going to happen. Anyway, go and look at those news shows, because I think you're going to get an education there. It's really informative about what they're dealing with right now in Australia. So take a look at that. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Keep your ears open to local COVID-19 and monkeypox news, wherever that may be. And so comment and subscribe on here if you got anything you want to hear or talk about. Hope everybody treats each other well. And I will talk to you later, so take care.